As always, Africa's fortunes depend on a lot of factors, a lot of outside factors. Until World War II, the entire continent was carved up by world powers. It was a hotbed of exploitation and discrimination. 7 decades later, the world powers are back: Russia, the US, and China. First to visit was Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia. He traveled to Egypt, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Congo. Lavrov's visit had two objectives: A, to show that his country still has allies. Many African countries have refused to condemn Russia's war in Ukraine. Lavrov's visit was supposed to reaffirm those ties. And B, to control Africa's resources. I'm talking about both human and natural resources. Africa is home to 30% of global mineral reserves. It is also an emerging market for foreign products. Russia wants a chunk of both. Now, Lavrov's visit was back in July. 2 weeks later, the US has dispatched their foreign minister, Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He landed in South Africa earlier this week. He kicked off his visit with this promise.
The United States will not dictate Africa's choices. Neither should anyone else. The right to make these choices belongs to Africans, and Africans alone.
Sounds like a good line, doesn't it? One of those statements that history books tend to like. But beyond that, does it signify anything? The whole point of Blinken's visit is to build up US influence. He may not be saying it, but Blinken's message is quite clear. Do not pick Russia or China. Is that not dictating choices? Why else did Blinken rush to Africa immediately after Lavrov? So let's keep the romanticism aside for a moment. Let's focus on the power play. Blinken's schedule is politically significant. His first stop is South Africa. Their government has traditionally been neutral to global conflicts. In Ukraine too, they have not picked a side. At the same time, South Africa is key to the continent's future. A, it is politically stable, and B, it is the second largest African economy. So good ties with South Africa are high on America's agenda. Blinken's second stop is the Congo, one of the most richly endowed African countries. It has deposits of diamond, gold, copper, cobalt, tin, and lithium, all crucial minerals. The US is hoping to gain access to these deposits, or if they can't access them, at least keep Russia and China out. The final stop is Rwanda, an important ally of the United States. It is also involved in a conflict in eastern Congo, so Blinken will be hoping to hit two birds with one stone. Use his leverage over Rwanda to ease the tensions in the Congo. Will it work? We'll find out soon enough. On paper, the US is well placed to build ties in Africa. They have deep pockets, they have the military infrastructure, they have no colonial past in Africa. So why exactly have they not performed well? Because of poor leadership, you could say. Barack Obama's presidency was supposed to transform America's Africa policy. After all, he was the first African-American president of the US. His father was a Kenyan government official. But like most of Obama's policies, it was a failure. All talk, no action. Donald Trump was a step further. He insulted African countries. In fact, Trump never visited a single African country as US president. Imagine that. 4 years, 0 visits to Africa. And during this time, Russia and China were busy. Russia built military ties with Africa. China built economic ties. Let's start with Russia. Their mercenaries are fighting in multiple African wars, in Mali, in the Central African Republic, and in Libya. They also buy a lot of Russian weapons. Almost 49% of Africa's military imports come from Russia. This includes tanks, fighter jets, helicopters, guns, all sorts of weapons. This defense trade has given Russia diplomatic clout in Africa. I'll give you an example. In the month of March, the United Nations passed a resolution condemning Russia's war. 35 countries abstained from voting. 35. Out of these, 15 countries were from Africa. In other words, they're not willing to hurt Russia's sentiments. Now, coming to China, in 2009, they overtook the US to become Africa's largest trading partner. Total trade, almost $254 billion. They're also the largest investor. In the last 5 years, China has pumped $70 billion into Africa. This money is spread across 287 projects. Most of them are white elephants. They're designed to push Africa into a debt trap. But then again, what option do these countries have? It's either poverty or debt trap. Not really a good choice to make. So compared to Russia and China, America is playing catch-up. The question is, how fast can they close the gap? A lot depends on Joe Biden's strategy. If he's serious about Africa, he needs a broader plan. He needs to get all Western partners on the same page. France, for example. Yes, they are a former colonial power, but France has considerable clout in the continent. Secondly, he needs to loosen his purse strings. I'm not talking about buying Africa support. I'm talking about genuine investments in Africa, safer alternatives compared to China and Russia. And all of this will take time. It won't happen with one visit by Antony Blinken. It will take a long-term plan with serious political capital. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.